You're about to enjoy a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands.
Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the SheEO Lead-In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights despite their sometimes rocky paths and found a way to lead in. Today we are here with Sonya, Mohamed from Nature Unplugged. Sonya, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here.
We're excited to hear about what you do and how you got to where you are. So why don't you share with us a little bit about your business and what you do?
Sure. So our company is called Nature Unplugged, and we're all about inspiring wellness in the digital age. And basically, that's just trying to help people have a healthier relationship with the screens and the devices in their lives and get outside into nature, reconnect to the natural world again. I've been seeing those two as really interlinked. And so we offer sort of two buckets of programs or services. One is educational, and that's coaching, one-on-one coaching, presentations. And then we also offer train the trainer programming. And then of course, the experiential pieces, getting outside into nature. So we do community hikes, day trips, and sort of digital detox retreats. So that's the business in a nutshell. And it's been going on since 2012. So I've been pleased that we've been around for so long. So I stepped into Nature Unplugged full-time in 2019. But my husband, who's also my business partner, we founded in 2012. Sort of with the idea that we just wanted to get people outside. It was a little more singular at that point. And then as we were taking people outside in 2012, it was sort of a similar timing as when the smartphone became accessible. Everybody started having them. And we noticed this trend of people spending more time indoors, less time outside, and really glued to their screens, almost obsessed with screens. And so we started paying attention to what was happening with smart technology and realizing these two are really interlinked. We need to be addressing both at the same time.
Well, when you say a healthy relationship with your screen, I honestly can't get that out of my head because I talk about this all the time. We have a situation right now, I think, where people are not spending as much time discussing things, talking face to face. So much gets lost in the translation. And I like you, I love to be outdoors. I love the smell of outdoors. I honestly, if you give me the beach or the mountains, I'm taking the mountains and a trail hike all day and night. I think it's wonderful. I actually went on a beautiful hike for 4 days up in the Tetons a few years ago. So I love that. Like that to me is just amazing. And we have such a beautiful world. Even though a lot of people don't actually see it, it's still there. And I love what you're doing. So the whole screen and healthy part of how you have a healthy relationship with it, I think is very intriguing personally because, I look at a lot of our kids and I think, gosh, is there going to be any hope for them to have discussions with people and real conversations because there's so much conversing through screens. So anyway, if you want to delve into that now, you can go ahead or we can discuss it a little bit later. But what are you seeing? Are there any trends, as far as showing what the changes with our brain patterns and all of that because we are spending so much time on the screen and less time outdoors?
Yes, there's lots of research around this, both the increased screen time and decreased green time,
Oh, I like it.
So our brains are beginning to operate differently because of how much technology we're using. And I think you can see this sort of anecdotally just when you're interacting with people. I think we tend to point our fingers at kids. We're looking at kids and being, oh my goodness, this is so different than how my childhood was. But the truth is it's really affecting us as well, adults and professionals. And it's changing the way, we're receiving dopamine hits. That's the big thing that people talk about a lot. They've created these devices that are almost sort of like slot machines in ways, really this idea that the currency today is much more about attention than dollars. I mean, it all sort of comes back to dollars, where the longer we're on our screens, the more likely we are to see advertisements and buy things, et cetera. And so we don't think about it that way, but it is an interesting paradigm shift because then you start to see yourself. It's sort of a gross way of thinking of it, but you start to see yourself as the product and not the customer anymore, especially when it's something free. So we always say, be curious about things you're getting for free because, right, there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Right.
So when it's free, there's some reason these platforms exist and are booming and are huge, like Facebook, right, is a good example. So they're really trying to keep me on Facebook as long as possible. And the way they do that is, through when I get a like, when I post a picture and I get a like, and the same thing for Instagram, a dopamine hit happens in my head and I get happy and excited and I feel rewarded. And so I want to keep posting more things like that. I want to stay engaged and I'm always looking for that next hit, right? And so I'm no longer sort of still like engaging with people one-on-one. Anytime I have any downtime, I'm looking at my phone, I may be pulling up social media, et cetera. So the way I'm engaging with my phone is different because I'm seeking that dopamine hit. And I think the other funny thing is, nobody ever is curious or wonders about anything anymore. You don't ever try to recall things in your memory because you can just look it up on Google or ask Siri or ask Alexa, et cetera.
Right.
So I think, there's some studies on long-term memory storage and certainly short-term gratification. Everybody wants everything to be instant. So those are all sort of brain changes and physiological changes. You're also seeing more stress, anxiety, depression based on, there's strong correlation. It's hard to say causation, but strong correlation to this increased screen time. And then all sorts of like things that are happening in our bodies that are different. I don't know about you, but when I'm sitting at a computer, I'm sort of like hunched. I'm never in a good position, even with all the ergonomic things they have out there now. Yeah. My neck's always hurting, my shoulders are hurting. And I'm sitting forever most days. It's like I have to really intentionally be getting up. So sedentary lifestyles are becoming more common, and then all the physical ailments that come along with that, hypertension, diabetes. We're seeing, even in kids, really decreased strength, like physical strength, and in adults too. So there's all these trends that are sort of intertwined and concerning. And so I do want to say we're not anti-tech. We really appreciate a lot about it, but there are some things that we sort of collectively need to be examining of, are some of these benefits worth the sacrifices or the challenges that they're creating both physically and mentally?
Well, Sonya, I think you have something there with less screen time and more green time. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this.
Yes.
You, as a kid, what is something that you would like to share with us that maybe people don't know about you? Just a fun story, a little something that happened that you kind of think, oh, that might have shaped who I am today.
Totally.
Or maybe not.
Yeah. So I think the context to this story is a lot of people who know me today think of me as sort of calm and centered and collected, very pragmatic. But when I was a little kid, I was sort of a tiny maniac. I just terrorized. I really hope karma doesn't exist for this reason, but I terrorized my parents. Not in a horrible way, but everything from moving furniture, drawing on the wall, moving it back. Every piece of furniture I wanted to climb and jump off of. Constant sort of cuts, bruises, stitches, broken bones. And then for some reason, I really loved Dimetap. Do you remember Dimetap?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I say that to people. I'm like, ooh, you like Dimetap? And for some reason, I loved it. And when I was younger, I would go to my mom and say, hey, Mom, I'm really not feeling well. I have a little bit of a cough. Can I have some Dimetap? And, she'd ask me some follow-up questions. She was a good parent. But then she would sometimes give it to me based on what I was displaying. And then like 30 minutes later, I'd go to my dad and be like, Dad, I'm not really feeling very well. Do you have any Dimetapp that I could have? And I was just so mischievous, but very curious and very always looking for creative outlets and physical outlets. And I think when I think back to that little Sonya, who was just sort of free, goofy, like really looking for positive outlets, I don't know how that would have been different if there were screens or devices in my life the way they are today. And even then, just as a woman trying to advance her professional career, a lot of that playfulness, mischievous sort of gets trained out of us, right? You're supposed to be quiet and polished and serious,
right.
Take yourself seriously. And so I went through this phase of really like suppressing that tiny Sonya, which I think still lives inside me. And part of my journey has been freeing that a little bit and letting the creative outlets come out again, the physical outlets, et cetera, and really being more in touch with sort of that playful spirit, which I think benefits all sort of women in the workplace, even when it's not always welcome.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And you know what? Life's too short to not have fun.
Right.
It really is. It's kind of funny when you were talking about the injuries and all of that. I never had any broken bones, but I was the stitch kid in my family. No one else got stitches except for me. I was always jumping off of things and always getting, the little butterflies, the stitches, whatever, chin, forehead, all of it. I thought part of it had to do with horses, but I'm not really sure because honestly, I think back and I really did. I jumped off of everything too. Thinking, could I fly?
Yeah, right? I'm not sure. I mean, I think that probably crossed my mind too. You watch a funny or cute TV show or read a comic book or something, and you're like, I can do that.
Yeah,
Why
definitely.
Yeah.
So much fun. So, thinking about who you are as a person outside of a business professional, what is one word that describes you as a person, do you think? And it could actually deal with work too, but I'm just saying, what is one word that describes you?
I feel like committed would be the one word I would choose. Committed.
Committed because you don't give up or...
Yeah, it's a combination of things. There's like an element of being loyal to it also, but I really like to see things through. Like once I say yes to something, I feel very committed to it. And I think that transcends both my professional and my personal life. I feel like that shows up in both places. But my word really matters to me, and I feel like I want people to know that when I say yes to something, and I'm going to do a good job and I'm going to get it done.
Oh, that's very good. And not always seen out there in business. A lot of people say things and they don't always do what they say they're going to do. I think it is very important. I try to undercommit, so that way if I can somehow squeeze more time and I can actually commit at the last minute and do something more than I had anticipated or that others were anticipating, then that actually makes me really happy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's very similar, actually. Like knowing sort of what your capacity is and only committing to the things you feel confident that you'll complete. There's
Definitely.
it doesn't have to be 100,000 things that you're committing to.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you've been doing this since 2017?
So it's a bit funny. So 2012 is when it started. So part-time doing it since 2012. But the full-time step into it was 2019.
Oh, 19.
Yes.
Okay. So before that, what did you do as far as career-wise?
My professional career path up until full-time with Nature Unplugged was almost exclusively in higher education administration. So working in colleges and universities as an administrator, not like a professor, if that makes sense, but a couple different areas. So I worked in student affairs for quite a while and mostly in the housing world, and then moved more to academic programs and did academic programs management, help with sort of the academic journey that students had. And I shifted from undergraduate to graduate programs at that point. So helping grad students figure out their path, what they needed. And it was, you end up doing a whole bunch of things. It's sometimes social, sometimes it's their financial aid, sometimes it's I'm trying to sign up for this. Sometimes you end up the IT person, all things.
Yeah. The girl that does everything. And then you decided, okay, now I'm going to delve into this with my husband and get this business going. And so tell me what that looked like. And it's not easy for those folks listening today. It is not easy working with your spouse. I did it for a very long time.
You?
So I definitely understand. We had actually started a furniture marketing business back in 1997. and we didn't end up. When we split, we dissolved the company. That was in 2018. So we did it for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it is not for the faint of heart.
It's
it can
not.
definitely cause issues in a marriage. So tell me, what did that look like for you? I want to hear all about that.
Yes, definitely. Well, and I think you can't know what it's going to be like until you actually do it, of course. So there's always an element of being a little bit naive, having some rose-colored glasses on. Thankfully, though, so my previous job before stepping into Nature Unplugged was at the University of San Diego, USD, and they have the wonderful benefit of tuition remission for employees, their spouses, and their dependents. And so actually both my husband and I went through the master's program there in leadership studies at the same time, sort of with the idea of like, let's see how viable something like Nature Unplugged would be if we want to take it from sort of our side passion project that, you know, when we have time for it, we do it, to something that's more viable for full-time work. And luckily that program was very sort of exploratory and reflective, because it's all about what is leadership, how do you develop leaders, you know, and really understanding yourself. And so to practice that, you're doing a lot of assessments, you're talking a lot about what roles you tend to take up, what dispositions you have. And so I think we were really fortunate that we were able to do that together, sort of see where our strengths and weaknesses were. Mostly they were a little bit offset so that we would sort of combine together and sort of pick up where the other didn't have a strength.
Right.
And I think we became much clearer, even just from doing projects in the master's program together, like, oh, that doesn't work at all. Like, one of us needs to be the lead. We can't make collaborative decisions all the time. So we learned a lot about our working relationship and what it looks like to work together in some ways in our program, which was helpful. Yeah. And there were some pieces in that program that really helped with, like, what does a business look like? How to build a business, some of the finances. There were a lot of great resources there. So we feel really fortunate that we got a little extra assistance so that we could step into it and really just try to not take it too seriously and become overly committed to the outcome. Right now, like, over-identify with whether this was a success or not, but it just felt like we were both interested in it enough that we're like, why not? Let's see if we can do it. And together, I think we can. And so far, we have. So that's good. But it is, every day is a journey, and we learn something new about ourselves and each other and our work dynamic together.
Well, and finding that balance too between home life and work. That's you've got to have a boundary at some point in time. Otherwise, you're just talking about work all the time, and that just isn't very easy either.
That is such a challenge, actually. Yeah, it's so hard.
How do you do it?
Yeah.
What are your strategies for this?
Sure. I mean, I think it's a lot of like friendly reminders to each other. Yeah. We tried it. One of the things that's worked really well for us is trying to have a transition between sort of the workday and that post-work hours, whether that's a walk or a physical activity. Sometimes it could just be a meal, like, okay, we eat dinner and that's our official transition. Like, we're not talking about work at all until we turn on the computers in the morning. But really trying to have set specific times and stick to it. And really, I think it's just a matter of, for us, it's just the kind reminders, because every week one of us tries to start a conversation at 8 p.m. about a work-related thing. And it's like, you know what? Hun, let's hold that till tomorrow.
Right. Right.
But I do think the transition piece has been really helpful. The device boundaries actually are very helpful too. Like, I try to make sure that I don't have my work email on my phone. I've taken it on and off a million times, but I'm in a phase right now where it just can't be on there because I'll look at it habitually, unconsciously, and launch into something. But the time that we close our devices, turn off our phones, et cetera, put them away, and like a physical space for them to go, just remove some of the temptation to like open it up. Or it's similar to social media sometimes, because it's like when I have a few minutes of downtime, I'd be like, oh, I wonder, if anything's on my work email, the same way I would wonder if anything's happening on Instagram.
Wonder, but don't look.
Yes, right. They're equally hard sometimes, which feels funny because I never thought I'd be that person who's like going to look at their work stuff after hours.
Well, I think everyone tends to kind of gradually drift off. They're in the middle of a conversation and they go, oh, shoot, that came back into my mind. And then it's really hard to resist that.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It's very hard, especially social media. I use social media a lot for work. Yeah. And I don't want to think about it. Sometimes I will turn it off and then, not really turn it off, but I just won't look at it. And then I'm not kidding. I've actually had people respond to me and say, well, you just didn't even respond what was going on. It's like, wow, okay, there's you create an expectation
right.
of actually responding. And then if you respond too quickly, then something's going on. And if you respond too slowly, well, then gosh, what happened to you? Were you trying to dodge it? It's like, whoa, okay. So I think, I think honestly, it's not social media, but again, back to our devices, they've created a society, which you had touched on a little bit earlier, of us wanting everything right away. Yes. And, it has to be right now. It has to happen right now. Oh, it should have happened yesterday. Mm-hmm. It really, really is pretty damaging, I think, to our world.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it about the world that seems so big, but truthfully, it really has created a lot of issues.
Yeah. I mean, the expectation for immediate responses doesn't benefit anyone. There's very rarely a need for an immediate response outside of an actual emergency. This came up a lot with sort of the boundaries for my phone. One of the things, actually, for Sebastian and I, who's my partner and husband, we don't keep our phones in the bedroom at all. We have a device-free bedroom, no TV, no laptops, no tablets. We do have Kindles, but I feel like that doesn't count. But I went through this thing of well, what if there's an emergency and my mother or my sister tries to call me? And, it took a couple conversations with Sebastian where it's like, if it's a true emergency, I'm not the person they should be calling. They should be calling 911 and taking some relief in that. And then, I'll get that message in the morning. But there's a totally different etiquette around response time now. And I don't think it's for our benefit, to be honest.
Well, I think that sounds amazing. I wish I could do that, but I think it's a little different when you have kids. Yeah, I think that kid part does. I will always say, okay, I'm not answering the phone or looking at the phone unless it's the kids. And then my phone rings. I go, okay, it's not the kids. And then I try not to answer it.
Yeah. Well, now they have all these really nice features too, though, where you can have your phone on Do Not Disturb, but your favorites, like the people you listed as your favorites, those calls will come through. So you know if a call comes through, it's only going to be these 5 people. Right. Which is helpful because then you don't have to look every time to just see if it's your kid. So... But that's the most common objection we get all the time as kids, and I think that's fair.
I got to figure that one out.
Yeah,
not to let my kids ring through, but nobody else.
Yeah, it's helpful.
Definitely.
Totally.
Oh yeah, I think that's awesome. So I guess there are some good things that have happened with technology. So, do you have role models or mentors that you can kind of point back that have really affected you and brought you to where you are and helped shape and mold you?
Definitely, of course. I think probably the first role model that I feel like I ever had was those 2 of them, Mia Hamm and Julie Foudy. I was a big soccer player when I was growing up, and it's pretty incredible, in particular women's soccer in the United States, and how big of a deal it is in a male-dominated sports culture. And so just seeing these women really go out there and do it and have a professional career and find the balance of, being a woman and an athlete. Both of them I just admired so incredibly much. And then I would say actually my sister's a huge role model for me. She started her own business. First she started in a career, an educational career path that was male dominated, the STEM math specifically. And I have to say I didn't encounter much overt sort of academic issues with being a woman or pressures being a woman, but I saw a lot of that happening to my sister being in that field, and it wasn't always easy, but she just kept going. She's like, this is what I want to do. Nobody's going to tell me I can't do it. And then also, did a corporate job for a little bit and was like, I hate this. I'm going to start my own business, and started her own SAT, ACT test prep and tutoring
yeah.
company, and has been doing that forever and really successfully. So I think seeing her do that made it feel real and tangible to me, where it didn't seem just like a pipe dream that like, oh, everybody dreams about starting their business. I'm like, oh, well, look, my sister did it. It wasn't easy, but she did it. And those were sort of my growing up sort of role models. And then honestly, at the USD master's program, there were my academic mentor, Dr. Terry Monroe, and a professor there, Dr. Zachary Green, really had this incredible way in the program of being super present and engaged and helping me discover things about myself, really learn about myself and, what roles I tend to take up, what my disposition was and where that was serving me and where that was really getting in the way of the things I wanted to do. And I think without them, that program would have felt flat and I wouldn't have come out of it the way I did and probably wouldn't have really felt empowered to take the leap into Nature Unplugged.
So don't you find it interesting, and this is it's a very deep philosophical thing, but when our kids are 18 years old, they have no idea who they are and what they actually have an interest in, truly.
Yes.
And we have so many kids going into careers and not even careers, honestly, more degrees in things that they have not that much interested, when they grow and their brains develop, because I think they say that at 25, our brains are now formed and we can make big decisions. And it's like, wait a second, we're actually deciding what we're going to do for the rest of our life with our careers before that. So I don't know. I feel like philosophically that seems...
Yeah, there's dissonance there, right? Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. We're asking a lot of an 18-year-old to commit to a degree and a path, and also giving them a lot of mixed messages about college, like figure out your career now and also explore, define yourself,
right.
And I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but it's something crazy about how few people really use their degree, like end up in a job that is actually in the degree they got from college. And it's almost like college has become sort of like a maturity indicator. Like I can do something and complete it and like succeed in some way. And that's sort of all it is. I mean, there are, of course, pathways like medical professionals
where you need that. Doctors and attorneys, there's definitely...
Totally. But in a lot of ways, I think hiring managers, et cetera, have started to be a little bit more creative in the way they look at resumes and degrees and not ruling people out that they may have before. But I do think we could be doing more sort of culturally and societally to help young adults explore what their interests are, what their strengths are, and really make it tangible of what does that career look like and would you actually want to do that every day? Because I think sometimes you have this fantasy about what this career is going to be and you like the content, but then the actual practice of it is like, this is a hustle. I don't really like this. Or this is much more, challenging, or the hours are crazy. And, you just didn't think about it. And it's like, you shouldn't be getting at the end of your degree and thinking about that. It should be the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
So just kind of exploring that, lessons that you would that you've actually seen and the application of it, I think, for yourself, for young women, what would you share with them about all of that?
One of the biggest things that I think is needed, and we tend to work with clients on, individual clients and then also in groups, is really figuring out what's an internal motivator and what's an external motivator. Like, what are the outside inputs that are making you think you want to do something? And not saying those are bad, but just noticing what those are and then really trying to figure out, like, if I could do anything that was totally up to me, what would I be doing? And getting in touch with that. And again, it doesn't mean that, like, okay, music is the most important thing in my life and I'm going to go make a career out of that. Maybe not, but it's good to know that. Maybe it's going to be a hobby because I can preserve it better as a hobby than a profession. But the external pieces are really noisy. And there's a lot of pressure there usually. Like sometimes it's parents, what your parents want you to do. Sometimes it's what you think success looks like and what, the people around you say that is. And, sometimes it can be, friends or colleagues or even just sort of larger social pressures that say like, okay, I want the job that pays the most, or I, want the job that, Jay-Z has, or, it's like these popular people that you may admire. And so when you can really figure out what's coming from outside of me and what's coming from inside me, and what do those things mean together, you can look a little more holistically at, are there these other paths or careers or professions or things I could do that would fulfill some of these, but maybe not distract from the thing that I'm going to actually enjoy doing day to day.
Right. Because if you enjoy doing it, you can get a lot done. I feel like you're more productive and you can really excel at that.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you most passionate about in your job? What do you really just wake up and go, I can't really wait until I can do this part of the job?
I'm going to say two things. Is that allowed?
Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
Because they're quite different. The one is really the just getting outside part. I mean, coming from a career that was really desk-oriented and knowledge-oriented, when I can get outside with people and see sort of the outdoor learning that happens just inherent from being outside, right? Like we're constantly assessing risk, even if it's small. We're learning how to plan and also reflect if we didn't plan well. Like, I'm very cold. I should have brought a jacket. Next time I'm going to check the weather. I always thought it was going to be sunny every day in San Diego, but it's not always true. So both for my own learning and experience of being outside, but then also seeing other people be outside and what it does to them. And, we're at the starting point of sort of getting there. Sometimes, some resistance, some grumpiness of, oh, it's early or, oh, it's raining or whatever. And then by the end of the day, really seeing the transformation of like this sort of freer, lighter person. And then the other is actually I get to do a lot of like design, like graphic design in my job. And so when I am sitting at a desk, that's the thing where I'm like, ooh, I've got a design project on the docket today. I'm excited about that.
So you like the art creativity
yes,
of it?
I do.
Nice. So you walk into a room of young women. They want to be leaders. What would you say to them that is the most important thing, or it could be important things, that you would want them to know so that they could become the best version of themselves?
I think it would be, don't ever apologize for being clear with your language and your expectations. I think in the professional world, that's not normal always for women, but people will respect the consistency and they will know what they're getting. And eventually, I think they will just respect you as a colleague more because they know that you're consistent, you're clear, and you get what you see. I'm always going to say, this is what you can expect from me. And as long as I do that, they can't ever gripe about it, right? It's like, that's exactly what I said on the front end. So what do we need to do differently?
And why do you think that we don't do that more?
I think, again, it's a cultural thing where, as women, we're sort of taught to apologize a lot. We're also taught to be a bit more, I don't know what the right word is for it, but like gentle with our wording, so as maybe not to bruise egos, but, for men and women. But I feel like some of the men that I worked with when I was younger who had really clear language, at first I was sort of offended by it, but then I grew to really appreciate it of like, I don't need to sift through a 3-paragraph email for one sentence. It's like, just tell me what you need. And you don't have to be mean about it, but you can just be clear. But I think sort of the concise, assertive language is not common for women, again, because we tend to be taught to be a bit more like approval seeking and sort of friendly, apologetic, et cetera, instead of sort of clear and concise.
And direct.
And direct.
And honestly, with our time crunch, almost all of the time, it feels like as time goes on, I don't know, the older I get, I feel like, gosh, how could I really have less time? But I feel like often I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, okay, well, I don't have time to waste to go into all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I need to just say what's on my mind.
Right.
And you're right. Sometimes it can be very direct and sometimes not appreciated. And, how does that go over that, and work around that? So it can be tough. So anyway, I think that's important for young women too, to really understand that and think about that. So what's next for you? What are you going to do?
So, stay with Nature Unplugged as long as we can. our goal is to continue to scale and grow our services and our offerings in new and different ways. We are actually shifting our business to become a nonprofit, so that'll be a new adventure for us. And the goal there is to be able to provide services or subsidize services and scholarship programs, et cetera, to access a different population than we traditionally have. So I'm excited about that, and I think the operations will continue to expand. So my journey as COO will continue to morph and evolve. And we are still sort of a lean, efficient business. So lots of hats to take on and put off in the future, I'm sure.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate hearing from your perspective some of the things that you've learned and some of the things that you'd like to pass on to the next generation of women.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learn how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host, Rebecca Jones.
You have been listening to a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands. Find more stories at cloudcast.us.